Beyond the News is a journey in self-knowledge. We are twisted this way and that by the modern media. Our bodies, our hearts, and minds are moved to new places that often scatter us into realms of uncertainty. Some of the information we receive activate and nourishes our wellness. Other information we receive feeds our dysfunction, filling us with despair, disbelief, and danger. The first podcast was a very brief overview of how our nervous system may be responding to what we see and what we hear as we experience the news. This podcast introduces a more subtle awareness of the body's respiration when it encounters the news and the knowledge our breath can reveal to us. The key here is discovering that we can relax the body by making our breath calm and paying kind attention to our respiratory process. This means we are invited to study the breath in a special way, to take note of our precious respiration that occurs in long breaths, short breath, calm breaths, violent breaths, fast breaths, slow breaths, hot breaths, cool breaths. We must know them all. In the last several weeks, news has been difficult to embrace. The earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, the violent death of Mr. Nichols, the women still marching in Iran for equality and justice. And as I encountered all of these in the last few weeks, I noticed these different breaths occurring. Especially with the Tyre Nichols beating, I found my breath becoming violent. And so I had to do walking meditation to calm my breath down. I'm remembering a story from Thich Nhat Hanh on a Christmas day many years ago in Plum Village, where he talked about how he handled the news of Martin Luther King's assassination. He said he had to do walking, meditation all night to calm his mind, calm his heart, calm his body, so that he could imagine returning to the United States, which had killed Martin. Of all the kinds of breath that arise, it's important to know the nature of each breath, its characteristics, to recognize its functions and observe what influence these different breaths have on our body and our mind. We can use the breath to gain mastery over the body's response to the news. If the breathing is calm, the body will be calm. This is how we can influence the body responses to the news indirectly. I ask myself, I invite you to ask yourself, where is this news input leading your body and mind? Is it toward wellness, peace, or non-wellness and non-peace? Is it leading toward deep justice or no justice? Is it leading toward human harmony or human fragmentation? It's important to remember that the news has often been weaponized for reasons of power and control. Practicing with the breath and the news's input requires for me to be prepared before listening and watching any news input. The key first thing to remember about your input, I'm remembering a line from a Neil Young song about not listening to the news too much or controlling your capacity to receive it. In chemistry and in trauma transformation, practice is called titration, to make sure you don't take in more than you can handle, to take in a little bit at a time. I'm the kind of person who will go to a movie and be there the first 15, 20 minutes, and if I find it not nourishing, I will leave. We need to have the courage to let go of input that harms us. Thich Nhat Hanh likes to call this to change the peg. Put in modern language, if the channel you're watching is causing you harm, change the channel. How I do this, which I did last night, is walking meditation. Take 5-10 minutes to slow yourself down. Or it can be sitting meditation. Or it could be singing a favorite song, or listening to music, or laying down and taking a rest. Going outside to mingle with the plants and the birds and the other creatures on the ground. We live now in a world of what I call flat screen consciousness. So much information, millions of bits of data are sent to us on the flat screen. We tend to believe this information is true. This we should not assume. Every news broadcast, wherever it's from, has an agenda. The question is, what's the agenda? What is it moving us toward? What is it affirming? What is it denying? You know, the news has been weaponized by political agendas around the world. Remember, the news is framed by the mind and motivation, often with the goal of manufacturing consent. Consent of outdated thinking, consent of outdated language, and consent of outdated behaviors with one another. I have a homework idea for you. I do this myself. You may want to have a little notebook where you can keep track of how your breath is responding to the news you encounter. You don't have to be analytical about this, just a few notes, a few lines, a few words, so that you can remember how precious your breath is in gaining self-knowledge, which can help you heal and transform your suffering, as opposed to feeding your suffering, so that you may be free. Beyond the news is not about escape from the news. It's about not being caught by the news, tricked by the news, confused by the news. It is a practice of self-knowledge so that we can be in charge of ourselves as individuals, our own minds, our own bodies, and our own critical intelligence can come alive when our body is relaxed and calm. Try out the homework piece. Just a little note someplace, and let me know how it goes. Thank you.